Hello everyone and welcome back to Horror Stories. I know many of you use these episodes to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the episodes. Story 1. I started an OnlyFans account during the summer to support myself while studying, and everything was going pretty well until I posted my shopping wish list. Sometimes fans want to give their favorite model gifts, so I thought, why not let them know what I like? It was a smart move to get the things I wanted. After dinner, I went out jogging at night. I work all day, so I barely have time to exercise. I was running down an empty street. The streetlights were the only thing lit up in the neighborhood besides me. I stopped under a tree to catch my breath and noticed a black van parked across the street. I saw a silhouette inside the vehicle, and I could tell they were watching me, but I couldn't quite make out the face because the inside of the car was so dark. I felt a little uneasy, so I started running faster. As I moved, the vehicle began following me. I ran full speed to my house and locked the door behind me. From the living room window, I saw the van stop in front of my house, and the driver's side window slowly rolled down. I recognized the man driving. It was my uncle, my dad's cousin. A chill ran through my whole body as I watched him drive away. I instinctively ducked so he wouldn't see that I had noticed him. The next morning, I went to check the mailbox. There was an envelope addressed to me from OnlyFans. Inside was $100, but no note. At that time, I was still living with my parents, who didn't know anything about my OnlyFans account, so I didn't say a word. Weeks later, I saw him at Thanksgiving dinner with my aunt. He stayed in a corner watching me the entire time. It was very strange how he looked at me, in the middle of a room full of people. I avoided him as much as I could, until at one point I didn't see him anymore and went to the kitchen to grab a soda from the fridge. As I opened it, I heard him behind me. "Hi, Martha." I smiled awkwardly. "Hi, Uncle Richie." I started walking away, but this time he followed me. "How's school?" he asked. "Huh, good. Do you have any plans for the holidays?" "Not yet," I replied with one-word answers, hoping he'd leave me alone. Then he said something that chilled me to the bone. "I must say, for a girl your age, you look quite developed, if you know what I mean." I saw my dad from across the room. I was so disturbed by his comments that I shouted, "Dad, Uncle Richie is saying something to me. Come here." Richie's face changed immediately. I could see the tension in his eyes as he shot me a furious look and walked away without saying anything to my father. When my dad got there, he asked, "Didn't you say Richie wanted to tell me something?" "Yeah, I think he went to the bathroom. Maybe he's not feeling well from all the wine," I answered. My dad shrugged and went back to the party. For the rest of the night, my uncle didn't even look at me again. A few days passed. One night it was raining heavily. The thunder and lightning kept me from sleeping, so I decided to upload some photos for my followers. I put on a pink swimsuit and took a few pictures in front of the mirror. Suddenly, I noticed the reflection of my window in the mirror. My room is on the ground floor, right in front of the street. Outside was the same black van parked in front of my window. This time, the driver's side window was down. My uncle was sitting inside, watching me with binoculars. I ran to close the curtains. At that moment, I heard the roar of the engine and the screech of tires as he sped off. That night, I cried myself to sleep. I didn't log in again for 2 days. Then, out of nowhere, I received a message from my uncle. "Hi, Martha. It's Uncle Richie. Ever since I found your OnlyFans, I can't stop admiring how beautiful you are. I was thinking maybe some of my friends and I could subscribe to your page. Do you have any friends who also have OnlyFans? My buddies would love to subscribe to them too. Don't be shy." I blocked him completely. I no longer attend any gatherings where there's a chance I might run into Uncle Richie. My parents don't know anything because they'd never accept that I have an OnlyFans account. I swear if he ever comes near me, I'll slap him. The story you just heard is loosely based on a real and chilling event experienced by OnlyFans model Carly Brooks. Carly has been working on the platform for a while, and her followers appreciate her a lot. Everything was going fine. Until one night she received a message from her own uncle who wanted to join her OnlyFans. Carly publicly shared the disturbing message, and it went viral. Story number 2. All of this happened in my home country, Brazil. A friend of mine had an acquaintance named Antonio. I never met him in person, but everyone who had told me he was a really funny guy. And as it often happens with men who have a sense of humor and are somewhat attractive, he was quite popular with women. One day, Antonio told my friend that he had landed a date with a model. A model? Are you serious? My friend said. Anyone famous? Maybe, Antonio replied as he handed him his phone. On the screen was an open OnlyFans page. The girl didn't have many photos or videos uploaded, which made it clear her account was pretty new. Still, my friend recognized her instantly. It was a local woman named Isabella. Young, incredibly attractive, one of the most beautiful girls he had ever seen. According to his own words, she had an ass like an onion, enough to make any man cry. Antonio had met her in our small town, and after a brief conversation, he asked for her number. But instead of giving it to him, she took his phone and directly showed him her OnlyFans page. From there, he became her follower. He sent her a direct message and asked her out. Isabella turned him down at first, but Antonio kept insisting. Instead of replying with words, Isabella sent him a locked image behind a paywall, equivalent to about $50. Antonio had money, so driven by curiosity, he paid without thinking twice, expecting a spicy picture. But the image wasn't what he expected. It was just a message with a time and a location for the supposed date. It also said to bring money to pay for dinner. As I mentioned, my friend knew exactly who Isabella was, and he also knew she had a boyfriend, a guy with a terrible reputation named Davi. Davi was known for hanging around dangerous people, being involved in shady stuff, and just looking at his face, you could tell he wasn't someone to mess with. My friend warned Antonio to be careful, to cut off contact with Isabella, and not to go to that date. But Antonio didn't listen because Isabella assured him she was single and no longer with Davy. That night, Antonio got dressed up and headed out on his scooter to meet Isabella. My friend, also being a curious man, decided to subscribe to Isabella's account himself. It only cost a few reais a month, so it didn't seem like a big investment. There wasn't much content, but clearly Isabella went for quality over quantity. My friend wasn't disappointed with what he saw. He logged off around 11 at night and went to sleep. The next morning, he messaged Antonio asking how everything had gone. No response. Antonio usually replied quickly, so he thought maybe things had gone well and that he was still with her. He waited until the afternoon. Still nothing. It wasn't too strange coming from Antonio. Maybe he was just busy, enjoying a special afternoon. But days passed and there was still no word from him. My friend reached out to all of Antonio's acquaintances, including his boss. No one had seen him since that night. The worry began to grow. The authorities, however, didn't seem too interested in helping. They said Antonio was an adult and had probably gone off on a trip on his own. After all, his scooter was never found. Meanwhile, Isabella kept posting content on her account like nothing had happened. Since my friend was still following her, he decided to send her a direct message asking if she knew anything about Antonio and whether he was okay. Instead of replying with text, Isabella sent a locked image behind a $50 paywall. Just one image with no message. My friend didn't have much money, but something inside told him he had to see it. He paid and unlocked it. It was a close-up photo of a dirty shovel, clearly held by a man's hand. In the background of the image, you could see a hole in the ground, big enough to fit a person. The image had a single phrase, "What do you think?" My friend didn't want to believe what his eyes were seeing, but deep down in his heart, he knew the truth. He knew he would never see Antonio again. He desperately tried to reach out to Isabella again, but she never replied. She continued posting for a while, but both she and Davi disappeared from the town shortly after Antonio's disappearance. There was no way it was just a coincidence. Everything pointed to both of them being involved in what happened. So what really happened that night? Scenario 1, Davy was using Isabella as a front, forcing her to upload photos to make money. She was the face, but he was behind the messages, and together they set a trap to lure Antonio. Scenario 2, Davy didn't know Isabella had that account, or that she had set up a date with someone. When he found out, he lost control. Maybe Isabella, seeing that Antonio dressed well and looked like he had money, chose him as the perfect target. Maybe they robbed him, and he tried to resist. Perhaps they had planned from the beginning to get rid of him and take whatever he had. Sadly, the police didn't do much. Davy had certain connections with the authorities, so there's a chance they intentionally covered it all up. The official story was that both Davy and Isabella had simply left town. Several months passed with no one seeing them again. My friend kept an eye on Isabella's account, hoping to find a clue. He thought that would be the end of everything. Until one night he got a notification. Isabella had uploaded a new image. He logged in immediately to see it. It was a post sent to all her followers titled, "My Last Post." The image was blurry. It showed Isabella in a dark forest. She had a black eye, cuts on her face, and an expression of absolute terror. Her hands were raised in front of her face, as if she were trying to shield herself from something, or someone. There was no caption explaining the photo. Both the image and her account were deleted shortly after. Davy never showed up in town again, and for everyone's sake, I hope he never does. Story number 3. Some time ago, I opened an OnlyFans account. I know what many of you might be thinking, but at the time I was single, and it seemed like a pretty harmless way to make some extra money. I started by posting very mild content and gradually got into more daring images. It's not something I'm particularly proud of, but I'm not ashamed of it either. At the time, I was living with my parents, so I had to be very careful about creating content. As I mentioned, I wasn't ashamed, but I knew they wouldn't take it well. That's why I always waited until they were out of the house before recording any videos or taking pictures. I didn't tell any of my friends either, afraid that somehow it would get back to my parents. It was a very private thing for me. After just a few months, I couldn't believe how much money I was making on the platform. I had built up a solid follower base and steady monthly income, so I decided to treat myself. My clothes were a bit outdated, so I wanted to update my wardrobe. I went to a local store to pick out some new outfits. It might sound strange to some, but while I was in the store, I started a live stream for my OnlyFans followers. I talked to them about updating my style and asked for their opinions on the clothes. I used to do these kinds of live streams on a private YouTube channel, exclusive to my followers. I thought it helped to build a sense of community. Many enjoyed seeing glimpses of my daily life, at a cafe, shopping, or just blogging from my apartment. I would usually reply to their comments and interact with them. For the most part, they behaved respectfully during the streams, and I started recognizing some of their names. It was all quite wholesome in that sense. I was walking around the store with the camera in selfie mode, talking to my fans. After about 20 minutes, I ended the live stream. That same night, while checking my page, I noticed that one of my regular followers had left me a message. "Thanks for wasting our time and money by lying to all of us. You never said you had a boyfriend. Consider this the end of my support." I was confused. Boyfriend? Where did he get that from? This guy was one of my biggest supporters, so it hurt to see him leave like that. Naturally, I messaged him right away. "Hey, I'm single, free as a bird. I don't know who told you otherwise." He replied, "Do you think I'm stupid or what? It might have taken me a couple of months to notice, but it's clear you're with someone. That guy is always in the background of your streams. He was with you in the store today, too." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "The guy in the green shirt," he answered. "Poor guy, honestly. Must be hard dating someone who does what you do." I went back and reviewed the recording from that day. And yes, 5 minutes into the stream, over my left shoulder, you could clearly see a man in a green shirt walking fairly close to me. He was tall, well-built, looked to be in his 20s, but already had deep under-eye bags and thinning hair. At first, I thought it proved nothing, just another shopper in the store. But I kept watching the video, and sure enough, the same guy appeared multiple times in the background, always behind me. It was as if he was following me. Still, I clung to the idea that it might just be coincidence. However, the follower's words wouldn't leave me alone. He said he had seen that man in other streams too. I went back and reviewed a previous live stream, the one at the mall. At first, everything seemed normal, until I saw him. The same man in the same green shirt walking behind me in the distance. That live stream lasted 47 minutes, and he appeared in almost all of it. Sometimes farther away, sometimes very close, but always behind me. The video ended with me sitting at a cafe, and he was sitting alone just a few tables away. His dark eyes never left me. I hadn't noticed him at all. At that point, I started getting scared. This couldn't just be a coincidence anymore. I went back through older streams, videos in the city, walking the dog, relaxing at the beach. He was in all of them, and in most of them, he was wearing that same green shirt. This man, whom I had never seen in my life, had been following me almost daily. I had no idea who he was, but clearly he knew a lot about me. I didn't know what to do. He had never approached me or tried to speak. My dad worked in law enforcement, but I didn't feel capable of telling him about this. I decided to stop posting content for a while, stay alert, and wait for things to settle down. I figured if he saw I wasn't posting anymore, he'd lose interest. How naive I was. A couple of weeks went by, and to my relief, I didn't see him around town. I thought my plan had worked. Even though my followers were getting impatient and my income was dropping, I saw it as a fair price for my safety. One weekend, my parents went away on a romantic getaway. Taking advantage of being alone, I decided to upload new content to revive my account. That night, I made dinner, opened the kitchen window to let the air in, and then went upstairs to take some photos. After uploading them, I started a live stream to apologize to my followers for being away and to announce that I was back. The salty food had made me really thirsty, so during the stream I went downstairs to grab my water bottle from the living room. I had my phone with me, scrolling through comments as I walked. Then I read one that froze me. "Hey Mellow Cat, who's that man at your window?" I looked at my phone screen. In the corner, barely visible, was the blurry silhouette of someone standing in the darkness, right behind me. I turned around, and there he was, the man in the green shirt. He had gloved hands pressed against the glass of the living room window, and his face was so close to the glass I could see his wide, crazed eyes, filled with a disturbing excitement. I screamed at the top of my lungs and ran upstairs, still holding my phone. I locked myself in the bathroom and called my parents, crying, telling my dad what was happening. "There's a man outside the house, the same one who's been following me." He said they were on their way, told me not to panic, and said my mom was already calling the police. We lived in a very isolated area, so we had no neighbors to run to. My dad instructed me to run to the attic and stay there quietly until help arrived. I followed his instructions. I left the bathroom, and after just a few steps, I heard soft noises coming from the kitchen. Then I remembered. I had left the window open. That man was inside my house. The attic entrance was in my parents' bedroom. As I made my way there, I heard his voice from downstairs. "Where are you, Mellow Cat?" He was looking for me, and using my OnlyFans username. I ran into my parents' room and slammed the door shut. As I locked it, I heard him charging up the stairs. I bought just enough time to pull down the attic ladder and climb up. While I was climbing, I could hear him slamming against the door. I managed to get all the way up and pulled the ladder up behind me, sealing the hatch. I stayed up there, holding my breath, my hand covering my mouth. He had broken through the door. I could hear things being smashed and thrown around below. He was shouting insults and saying he knew I was still there. The terror didn't last long, maybe 5 minutes, but to me it felt like an eternity. Eventually, everything went quiet. I waited until I heard the sound of police sirens pulling into the driveway. My parents arrived shortly after. During the investigation, the forensics team checked the doorknobs for fingerprints. They found none. but they did find traces of trichloroethane, chloroform, probably from a rag, or his gloves. The only thing he took was my laptop. On it I had photos I had never uploaded online. It was clear he came for the real stuff, but after seeing me escape, he settled for the files. Since then, I haven't posted anything. I didn't even say goodbye to my followers because I know he was one of them. I ended up telling my parents everything and moved in with my sister in another city for safety. I won't say where, for obvious reasons. He, the one in the green sweater, might be listening. And yes, even though we have fairly clear images of his face, and we know he was someone local, one of my own followers, they never managed to find him. I never found out how he got my address. All I can do is be grateful that I went downstairs for water when I did, and that one of my followers noticed and warned me just in time. Because if that man had gotten in while I was still live streaming upstairs, I might not be here today to tell this story. Story number 4. Well, this is my story. I was 19 when I got fired from my job as a barista. After finishing high school, I had no motivation to go to college or get a degree. My parents kept telling me that if I didn't find another job within a year, they would kick me out of the house. The problem was I hated regular jobs. I couldn't stand the idea of having a boss and someone else controlling every aspect of my life. That's when I discovered OnlyFans. A friend of mine told me she was doing it full-time and that it was her only source of income. At first, I couldn't believe that was even possible, so I started researching what I could offer on the platform and decided to create my own profile. For context, I'm a woman, and at the time I still lived with my parents. Well, 3 months after launching my account, I was already earning enough to move out on my own. Everything was going great until one of my followers sent me a message. I don't know if you or anyone reading this has ever been on OnlyFans, but it basically works through subscriptions. My content consisted of pictures of me in bikinis, lingerie, and things like that. One night, I got a message from one of my subscribers. I usually respond and interact with everyone who writes to me, but this message was different. The username was Mr. Number One. He wrote saying he was my #1 fan. In fact, he claimed he was my only fan. I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He demanded that I delete all my other subscribers and leave only him as my exclusive follower. I replied that this was my source of income and that I wasn't going to delete anyone. That didn't sit well with him. That's when he started calling me by my real name, my full name. That sent chills down my spine because my OnlyFans account is anonymous. I use a stage name and never show my face. But somehow he knew exactly who I was. And then came the worst part. He threatened to show all of my OnlyFans photos to my parents if I didn't do what he asked. In that moment, I lied. I told him my parents already knew about the account and that he was wasting his time. He didn't message again for a week, until Friday night came. I was in my room working on new ideas for the account when the doorbell rang. It was 1 a.m. I jumped. I heard my parents' bedroom door open, then my dad's footsteps coming down the stairs. My heart sank when I saw him open the front door. There was a giant Christmas box on the doorstep, and the moment I saw it, I knew exactly what was inside. My dad brought the box in. Inside were hundreds of printed photos of me, taken from my OnlyFans account. On top of everything was a note written in black marker that said, "This is what your whore daughter does for money." It was, without a doubt, the most humiliating and terrifying moment of my entire life. I had to sit down with my parents and explain everything. I told them I had an OnlyFans account. My dad's first concern was figuring out who had dropped off the box. I told him it was a crazy subscriber who had been stalking me. After that incident, my dad had a new security system installed throughout the house, and I was grounded until I moved out last year. My parents made me delete the account, but I only pretended to. Today I live alone in my own apartment, and I still keep my OnlyFans account active, as it's still my main source of income. But what happened to me taught me something very important. It's incredibly easy for someone to find out who you really are and expose you. That guy is no longer one of my followers, and honestly, I hope I never ever run into him again. Story number 5. I'm going to tell this story anonymously, for obvious reasons related to what I do. I have an OnlyFans account, and in fact it's my main source of income. Actually, it's a project I share with my boyfriend. We manage it together like a business. What helped me find success on the platform was that we had a pretty unique niche. Our content revolved around visiting supposedly haunted places and filming there. We made videos in abandoned farms, crumbling Victorian houses, and even in deteriorated cabins. And well, this story happened when we found a very interesting old house deep in the New Jersey woods. It was a completely ruined home, hidden among trees and bushes. To get there, we had to walk at least half a kilometer through the forest. Honestly, it was one of the most striking and perfect places we'd ever found to shoot. Until that happened. My boyfriend and I arrived at the house around mid-morning. The heat was intense, and inside the place it was even more suffocating. And yes, to be completely honest, we were trespassing on private property, since there were signs all over that said no trespassing. But at that moment, we didn't really care and decided to go ahead with our plan. Once inside, we started setting up the lights and cameras we had brought. We spread out some sheets and prepared a small clean corner inside that dirty, crumbling place. That's when we heard a sound. It came from the hallway from one of the nearby rooms. And the creepiest part was that it sounded like someone was softly singing or humming a tune. We looked at each other, as if trying to convince ourselves that we hadn't heard anything. We wanted to believe it was all in our imagination. But then, we started to hear footsteps. We were in a room at the back on the ground floor. At first, we had heard the singing coming from the hallway, and now those footsteps were heading directly toward us. A paralyzing fear took over me. It had never crossed our minds that someone else could be inside that house while we were filming. Quickly, we began packing up all our gear into our backpacks. We rushed toward the nearest window. My boyfriend tried to open it with all his strength, but it was stuck. That was the exact moment a woman appeared in the doorway. She was skeletal, completely bald, with no eyebrows. She was singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb" while staring straight at us. She wasn't wearing any clothes, just an old, worn-out blanket. I swear, looking at that woman felt like staring straight at the devil. I started screaming at my boyfriend to open the window however he could. The woman began walking toward us with her arms outstretched. Desperate, my boyfriend shattered the glass with a piece of equipment he was carrying. He pushed me out first, and then climbed out right behind me. I could see he was bleeding from the cuts he got from the broken glass. I tried to help him with the wound, but he told me to leave it and started pulling me to get away from there as fast as possible. We started running like maniacs through the trees, putting as much distance as we could between us and that cursed house. Before we completely disappeared into the woods, I looked back one last time. She was still there, standing at the broken window, hand raised, waving goodbye with a chilling smile. After that incident, my boyfriend and I decided to stop visiting abandoned places. We realized that no matter how exciting it seemed, it was far too dangerous. And honestly, a really dumb idea. I still have my OnlyFans account. Of course, I had to change the kind of content I create. But luckily, I still have a good number of followers and things are going well. So, yeah, take care out there. Story number 6. Let my story serve as a warning to anyone thinking of opening an OnlyFans account. Or really, for anyone who uses social media. I have an OnlyFans account, although to be honest, I don't take it very seriously. I post a couple of photos a month, if that. To give a little context, I'm 21 years old, female, and still live with my parents. I don't have a huge number of subscribers, but I have a decent amount. One night I was replying to a few messages that had come in through OnlyFans, when I noticed a new one. It was from a user named Jack D. Jack D wrote saying I was the most beautiful creation God had ever made. Along with the message, he left a $100 tip. I replied thanking him for his generosity and kind words. He responded saying that was nothing. and that if I agreed to be his wife, I would live in a mansion in Hollywood, drive the finest cars, and eat like a queen. I get these kinds of messages fairly often. Especially on OnlyFans, there are men who try to impress you with money and always promise a life of luxury if you agree to be with them. As tempting as it may sound, I always reject those offers. I don't know these men and I'm simply not interested. I did the same with Jack D. I turned him down politely, but he didn't take it well at all. He started insulting me, saying I was just another typical internet girl who was only out for money. He called me awful things. I was about to block him when he sent me a screenshot of my personal Instagram account. He said he knew exactly who I was, where I lived, and that if I didn't agree to marry him, there would be consequences. I've dealt with weird people online before, but this guy was completely unhinged. And somehow he had found my real social media accounts. I didn't respond. I just blocked him on OnlyFans. The next night I got a message on Instagram from an unknown account. I opened it, and it was Jack D again. He said he was never far from me and that I would be his wife no matter what. I didn't respond to him either. I blocked him again and set my Instagram to private. A few days after that, my dad called me into his office, the one he uses to work from home. He was sitting in front of his computer and asked me to take a look at something. He had pulled up footage from our home security cameras on the screen. He rewound the video a bit, and then paused. The image showed the side of the house, right where my bedroom is. He pressed play, and in the video you could see someone approaching in the dark and standing there, staring directly through my bedroom window. I felt a knot in my stomach. I was on the verge of tears from fear. My dad asked me if I knew anything about it. I told him that recently a weird guy had been messaging me, saying that if I didn't marry him, he'd find me and hurt me. My dad was furious and immediately called a private investigator. There's an open investigation going on about this now. Since then, we haven't received any more messages, and no one has been seen lurking around the house. But deep down, I'm still convinced it was Jack D. I have no proof, but I feel it in my gut. Ever since that day, I've been terrified to sleep. Knowing someone could be watching me through the window while I sleep makes me feel a kind of anxiety I can't even describe. Thankfully, my dad has been amazing. We're taking every safety precaution possible while the investigation continues. So please, take my story as a warning. There are people out there who are just completely insane. If there are any updates, I promise I'll share them. Thank you for listening.